These are more than just the sounds of a safe place to go after school. These are the sounds of interest being ignited and of mentors making an impact. The sounds of tutoring and tech and health and fitness and arts and music. At Boys and Girls Clubs, we don't do just one thing. We do whatever it takes to meet the needs of every kid who comes through those doors. Because whatever it takes is what it takes to build great futures. Great futures start here.
Good morning, and on behalf of the Salvation Army, I extend warm greetings to each of you. My name is Major Todd Mason, and I serve as the Area Commander for the Salvation Army of Greater Charlotte. Since 1934, we've served the Charlotte youth through our Boys and Girls Club programs, providing a safe place for them during out-of-school time, and this past year, even during school time, a place where they can grow and develop into productive, caring citizens that they are called to be. We're so excited that you've chosen to be here today, and we thank you for joining us. For those who are new, we welcome you. For those who are returning, welcome back. Today's event is called Better the Future, and I'd like to provide you a framework for what we came up with that and how it came to be. Because if you are new to our series, this is the basis for our discussion today. The Salvation Army was founded in 1865 by William and Catherine Booth in London. Catherine was a pioneer. She tirelessly advocated for women and youth in particular. One of her most famous quotes was, "If we are to better the future, we must disturb the present." So we hope you'll consider today the meaning behind those powerful words. Each of us play an active role in creating the future of the community we all want to see. We don't have to be satisfied with how things are. In fact, we shouldn't be. So today, we hope you'll be inspired to be a community champion for our community and the youth who live here. We hope you'll be moved in joining us to seek to ensure that no matter where a kid is from or the circumstances that surround them, it should not determine their access to positive experiences and opportunities that enable success in life. We are so grateful for the time you've carved out to be with us today, so there won't be much more discussion before introducing our speaker, but I do want to make you aware that we will have a time for questions and answers following the presentation. So if you have a question you'd like to ask, please enter that into the chat box so we can address it there or during our Q&A time at the end. In addition, to give or learn about volunteer opportunities or just to learn more about the Salvation Army, visit our website at salvationarmycharlotte.org. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to our speaker today. Currently, as Vice President of Culture, Engagement, and Care for Coca-Cola Consolidated, Reginald Bean oversees talent growth through intentional leadership behaviors and principles. He is now spearheading diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, policies, and procedures. He also serves as counsel to the executive leadership team. In previous roles, Reginald successfully led key functions during the organization's substantial growth and acquisition periods. Prior to joining Coca-Cola Consolidated, Reginald held several leadership roles during domestic and international assignments, spanning his 7-year military career in the United States Army. Reginald holds an MBA in leadership from the McCall School of Business at Queen's University of Charlotte. He is also an award-winning author of Unfinished, 40 Lessons on Purpose, Self, and Becoming a Man, and A Year and Some Change, Revealing Your Full Potential Through Purpose and Perspective, inspiring emerging adults to discover themselves while positively impacting their families and their communities. We know you'll enjoy hearing from him today, so without further ado, please welcome Reginald Bean.
Well, good morning. Thank you, Major Mason. And good morning to each of you, and thank you for joining us for the Better Together virtual speaker series. You know, a conversation with community leaders shaping Charlotte for today's youth. Again, like Major mentioned, my name is Reginald Bean. Vice President of Organizational Culture, Employee Engagement, and Care for Coca-Cola Consolidated. I'm also an advisory board member for the Salvation Army and Boys and Girls Club of Greater Charlotte. On behalf of our Chairman and CEO, Frank Harrison, and our President and Chief Operating Officer, Dave Katz, and our 16,000 teammates spanning over 14 states, including the District of Columbia, I want to say thank you for allowing me to share this morning with you. I'd also like to recognize our sponsors, Deloitte and RSM. Thank you for your support. You know, Major mentioned Catherine Booth and her quote of, "If we're to better the future, we must disturb the present." Talk about disturbing the present. Man, the last 14 months, I don't think any of us saw that coming. You know, but there's so much that I've learned about myself, and there's so much that I've learned about the Charlotte community during that time. So every Saturday morning, a buddy of mine and I, we get together and we go work out every Saturday morning. Sometimes we'll run, but oftentimes we're walking. And, you know, after we wrap up our workout, we'll grab coffee together. You know, this past Saturday morning was a little different. We walked into that same coffee shop, but we walked in and we kind of just froze. We didn't really know what to do, because for the past 14 months, we were able just to go grab our coffee and go back on our merry way. But today, they had their full setup, tables, chairs. People were in there chatting and enjoying their coffee and reading the newspaper. And we kind of didn't know what to do, because it's like, okay, things are kind of getting back to normal. And it was just a reminder of how many businesses shut their doors, scale back their support, or reduce programming. But that wasn't the case for the Salvation Army and Boys and Girls Club of Greater Charlotte. So I'd like to take a moment just to recognize Major Mason, his executive leadership team, along with the frontline leaders that continue to do the work throughout these tough times. So thank you, Major Mason, and thank you for your team for just continuing to serve our community. You know, I think back on that time in the coffee shop, and I just continue to reflect on the past 14 months. And, you know, it's ironic that a couple years ago, I actually wrote a book entitled A Year and Some Change, Revealing Your Full Potential Through Purpose and Perspective. You know, it's a self-reflective book where I encourage emerging adults to take a year and work on one specific area of your life. Now, when I wrote this book, I had no idea that God would actually grant us a year to actually do the self-reflective work. You know, there's a ton of work done on, a ton of research done on, you know, how are habits formed? And most research says that 21 days you can form a new habit, but we're 405 days into forming new habits. So as I walked out of that coffee shop this past weekend, I thought about which of the habits that I wanted to hold on to, that I've learned about myself during this past season. So this morning, I want to share 3 stories. No, better yet, I want to share 3 lessons that I've learned about myself during this past 14 months. So the first is, the backdrop isn't that important. The second is, some relationships matter more than others. And third, where we invest will determine how we recover. So one thing that I enjoyed doing during this pandemic was watching movies, right? So there was nothing better for me to huddle up with the family and just watch movies. So my favorite type of movie is more kind of a suspenseful movie, you know, the kind that'll keep you on the edge of your sofa, kind of guessing who done it all the way up until the end. But then I remember, man, during those early times that maybe I've actually watched one too many world-ending zombie type apocalypse type movies, because I started thinking, well, man, is this the end? But I thought about that, man. It's like, wow, you know, those things they just came back and sat in my mind. But, you know, I think about as we began to kind of settle into this pandemic year, I remember, you know, once everything kind of shifted to virtual meetings and, you know, virtual weddings and virtual baby showers and virtual everything, right? So, but it was right before that time when we figured out how to change our virtual backdrops, right? And so it was, you know, I remember looking past people and looking at their bookshelves and all the fixtures that they've had. And I'm like, man, everything is so neat and put together. And I remember thinking, man, I think I need to get my life together and get my literacy game up, because I'm looking at books behind everybody and it's like, wow, they really have their stuff together. But but I remember thinking, man, everything felt so well put together and in place. However, as the year evolved, those nice and pristine backdrops turned into photobombing from children, pets running across the screen. And then we figured out how to put the virtual backdrop of, us in, St. Cruz or or wherever the case. But then eventually we just shut the cameras off altogether. We were all zoomed out and virtualed out. And so that brings me to my first point. The backdrop isn't that important. I come from a hardworking, hard-nosed, blue-collar family in Detroit, Michigan. And I grew up in Detroit in the 80s where, for those that are familiar, at some point they were, probably first or second in murders per capita. Growing up in a neighborhood that lacked access to nutritional food or access to quality education. But for many things that my neighborhood lacked, it made up with the quality of people. There was actually a time, some of you may remember this thing called community parenting, where your neighbors had full autonomy to discipline you for getting out of line. And it was kind of like this, they'd tag your parents in once they got home from work just to finish whatever you started. But I grew up in a loving but dysfunctional environment. I was the middle of 3 boys raised by a mom who made countless sacrifices for us. But ultimately, she kept us safe and secure with a foundation of the right balance of love and discipline. When I look back at my journey, I'm so grateful for those individuals who played such a pivotal role in my life. So it could have been Miss Brooks, my 10th grade English teacher, or maybe it was Sir Nose, our youth pastor, who would open up the gym for us just to give us a safe place to play ball. Or I can thank organizations like the Salvation Army of Greater Detroit, who actually underwrote my first camp experience. It was where I learned that how mean fire ants really were, or just how mosquitoes, they don't discriminate. They love all of our skin just the same. Speaking of the Salvation Army, that brings me to my second point, that some relationships matter more than others. And I think about the Salvation Army of Greater Charlotte, whose mission is to enable all young people, especially those who need us most, to reach their full potential as responsible, caring, and productive citizens. They have 3 specific goals to develop programming that's designed to help children achieve positive outcomes in 3 key areas: academic success, character and citizenship, and healthy lifestyles. The Salvation Army and Boys and Girls Club of Greater Charlotte, they provided an affordable and reliable source for programming for children in grades K through 12 in Charlotte-Mecklenburg area for over 85 years. Parents have come to rely on the clubs not because of the low annual membership fee of $5, but because they can trust the people who actually run the programs. Many staff members have dedicated their entire lives to mentoring. It's their life's work. They have a history of service that demonstrates the dedication to doing whatever it takes to help our young people overcome life's challenges. That's why these are the relationships, and these relationships matter more than others. So I don't know the specifics of your journey, but somebody played a pivotal role in your journey. So regardless of you are one of the former children that the Salvation Army of Greater Charlotte used to serve, or if you had access to country clubs or summer vacations, it doesn't matter. Somebody played a pivotal role in your development. I'm sure if I gave you a few minutes, you can think back and reflect on who that person or those people were whose fingerprints are evident in your life today. And again, that's why I say some relationships are more important than others. So think about, midway through 2020, I remember thinking, man, how did I get all this time on my hands? What was I doing with all my time in the past? So it really forced me to prioritize and evaluate where I was spending, not investing my time. I remember thinking, man, I was running from this airport to that airport, from this meeting to that meeting. I was truly addicted to busy. And I was making a lot of excuses for not investing in meaningful relationships that could yield the most fruit. So that brings me to my third and final point. Where we invest will determine how we recover. So I don't know if there's any economists joining us out there today, but I've heard several financial forecasters or economists or TV pundits speculating on the various types of recoveries that the country will have. Is it going to be a U-shaped or a V-shape or a K-shape or elemental P-shape? Who knows what the type of recovery we're going to have. But here's the commitment that I've made to myself, regardless of the type of recovery. I'm going to invest in the places that yield the greatest return. For me, those are meaningful relationships. For me, those are organizations that provide services to our youth. For me, that means investing time on a Tuesday morning with you. But what does that mean for you? You know, as we come to the tail end of this pandemic year, that's going to be studied for years and years to come. It's going to be a part of every MBA program that, things that happened during this pandemic year. But how will you invest? You heard earlier that families pay a modest fee of $5 per year to have their kids participate and have access to the resources. But the remaining funds for programming come from people like you and come from people like me. So as I close, I'd like to remind you that your backdrop or your background or your starting point is not that important. It's about how you invest in people and relationships along the way. Some relationships with people and organizations like the Salvation Army and Boys and Girls Club of Greater Charlotte, some are more important than others because of who they serve and how they serve. And lastly, where we invest will determine how we recover. Investing in our youth in our Charlotte community can yield the most tangible returns. And they can make sure that our young people recover economically, emotionally, and spiritually. So thank you again for allowing me to join you this morning, and I hope you have a great day.
Reggie, we're so grateful for you. Thank you for all that you shared from your heart today. Would you mind having a seat for some questions?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Reggie has agreed graciously to respond to some questions that either have come in or that have been prescribed earlier. And so we're going to hear from him a little longer now. We asked this question at our first Better the Future speaker series, and we'd like to get your perspective on it as well.
Sure.
So let's talk a little bit about Charlotte and economic opportunity. What do we need to do as individuals, in your opinion, or as a city as a whole, to close the gap, the opportunity gap, and actually see results in this area?
Wow, that's a pretty broad question with specific solutions. So, I think the first is, understanding that we need each other. We as individuals, we as organizations, oftentimes there's a lot of pride in authorship of who gets the credit for what. And so I think about, making sure that we're coming together in a collaborative way, not only as individuals, but as organizations, but also keeping, remembering who it is that we're serving, who's the future, right? So in this community, if we aspire to have, to compete globally for talent, we have to start at home. We have to make sure that we're investing in our youth here in Charlotte. And so I would say, starting with collaborating with individuals and organizations and understanding, who it is that we're trying to serve.
Yeah. One of the things I appreciate so much about you, Reggie, is that when you commit to something, you go full in. And that speaks volumes to your character. And so we appreciate that. So how do you pass on that kind of passion for serving to your team at Consolidated? What do you do to inspire them the way you've inspired us today?
Well, the thing that I do to inspire my team at Consolidated is just reminding them we all have a passion, we all have a purpose. So start with discovering what that passion and purpose is, and it's going to be different. For me, my passion is clearly, helping our young people chart a path for their future. Somebody else's could be, our veterans. It could be, a variety of things. But I'd say, understanding what your passion and your purpose is, and prioritizing that in your life.
So important, yeah. It's also important to remember that we all face challenges, and that each of us are met at different stages of life. And so what do you believe is the biggest challenge that our youth face today?
Wow. I think the biggest challenge that our youth face today is this sense of hopelessness. right? So it doesn't matter what form of media they may turn on, they're bombarded with how many things are wrong in the world, right? So, but when I spend time with organizations like the Salvation Army or the youth within Salvation Army, I'm reminded just how hopeful the future is. And so I think the biggest challenge is this sense of hopelessness. But for me, I'm always inspired when I actually spend time to kind of reinvigorate and re-inspire myself.
Yeah, it's wonderful being able to give hope and help others to be the people they're called to be. So,
Sure.
Reggie, thank you so much for taking time to answer questions today. And again, thanks to each of you for joining us for this second part of our series. If you've been inspired by what you've heard today, please share it with others. After the conclusion of today's event, we will be providing a link to view this presentation on YouTube. So please, we encourage you to pass it along to friends, colleagues, family, and share that inspiration with others. Before we wrap things up, we have a couple more things we want to share with you. In just a moment, Mr. Tom Wilkins, another one of our advisory board members, will come and share some closing thoughts. But first, we want to give you a little more insight into the impact of our Boys and Girls Clubs. And we want to introduce you to a remarkable young man named Casey, whose life was forever impacted by attending the Boys and Girls Club. So let's watch his story together. This story together.
Boys and Girls Club changed my life for the better. You know, a lot of times when you grow up in environments like this, you know, there's really no structure, there's no organization, right? And that's where gangs kind of come in. There's not too many hopes, you know, you kind of have, you know, you rap, or, you know, maybe sell drugs, or, you know, play basketball, or sports, or whatever. So there's not that many outlets. Seeing a lot of different things that most kids my age probably wouldn't have been able to see. I had a friend I grew up with that actually was killed by his baby mom. Yeah, it wasn't baby mom, it was baby mom's brother. So the baby mom and the gentleman were, you know, I guess arguing, and a brother of the baby mother kind of actually came and, you know, just shot and killed him. These environments, if you don't have whatever it takes, you're not going to make it. You know, you do develop thick skin because you understand that at any, you know, 1 second, one blink of an eye, your life can change forever. So you have to always be on constant alert, always have to kind of have your head on a swivel, and you can't put anything past anybody. Boys and Girls Club gave us an avenue where we can see things from a different perspective. When I first showed up, I was always into sports, so I was always more like just the competitive, kind of like wasn't really anything I guess too serious. It was kind of like I was just like all over the place, you know. I always used to play basketball. They had the gyms, you know. I kind of think we heard about it because we was playing basketball. Was at Shoot Creek Recreational, and I heard the Boys and Girls Club had like a program over the summer. So we started going. Funny enough, the first staff member we met was Mrs. Tanya when we was in Marsh Road. So she's had a really big effect on all of us, especially me and my immediate younger brother.
So I met Casey 20 years ago. He was about 8 or 9, and I was a new director, just kind of green to everything Boys and Girls Club and Salvation Army, but I remember him and his family, and they were wonderful family people. So there's 4 brothers. He's the oldest. Casey's the oldest. He's a very rambunctious, outspoken, but really a great person.
I'm gonna be honest with you. There's a lot of things we've probably never been able to do without the Boys Club. Boys and Girls Club, whether it's Camp Walter Johnson, whether it's swimming, I mean, even learning how to swim. I mean, movie theaters there was so many different activities that if it wasn't for Boys and Girls Club, we just never would have had access to and been able to go to. Boys and Girls Club and the Salvation Army deserve a lot of credit for a lot of the good things we've been able to do. Because what Boys and Girls Club gave us was a platform. They gave us a platform and they gave us positive role models around us that looked like us, that understood our environments that we come from, and really told us not to give any excuses. So, you know, these are the things that were presented, but that doesn't necessarily mean that has to affect, you know, your upcoming and who you become. The Boys and Girls Club gave me, my brother, and my family consistency that we needed throughout life. And it helped me hone in some skills, community skills, public speaking, organization, structuring, being able to bring people together. Yeah, definitely. Even, you know, writing, because we had to write and apply for the scholarships and stuff like that. Yeah, well, the Boys and Girls Club is big on whatever it takes. Okay, what does that look like, right? A lot of times, a lot of kids didn't eat the whole day. The only time that they had opportunity to eat was at the Boys and Girls Club. The Boys and Girls Club would make sure that these kids not only ate, had something to drink, help them with their homework. I can remember on many occasions where staff will take extra time to focus and help them with whatever, math, English, with the teachers, because you understand when you go to some of these classes, I mean, you have 30, 40, 50 students with the teachers. A lot of times, they're not able to handle all that. So they come to the Boys and Girls Club as almost like a private tutor, right? And these are the opportunities that can really make or break a child. So whatever it takes is a concept that is very important to Boys and Girls Club and very important to my life, because no child should be left behind, and success is something that we pursue, and whatever it takes is what we're willing to do to make sure that happens.
What an amazing story. Casey is an incredible young man who is doing great things to help others today, all because others invested in his life. And honestly, as I watch that video, it reminds me and it just encourages me as far as the time that many of us are investing and that you're investing here today. And we greatly appreciate that. Good morning, everyone. My name is Tom Wilkins. As the Major said, I have the privilege of serving on the advisory board for the Salvation Army of Greater Charlotte. I'm here today actually representing all of our advisory board members and the members of the Boys and Girls Club Council, groups of people who have invested time and effort and attention and their experiences to try to make an investment in the lives of the kids that we serve at the clubs. As you may have learned from attending this event previously, the session that we did in April, the clubs in Charlotte are an important program of the Salvation Army, and it's our mission to ensure that each child we serve has the opportunity to be successful. Now, successful, Reggie made some comments actually, and we didn't share our notes, but successful means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. I can honestly tell you, in my time on the board, I've listened to individuals say that they actually owed their lives to the clubs, literally. And when you hear things like that, you stop and think about the importance of what we're doing and why we do it. But successful can also mean help with homework, not becoming a statistic in school, but graduating, as so many of our kids do. And we pride ourselves in the graduation rate that we are able to help achieve. I think their success can also be defined as what Reggie and the Major said earlier, and that is hope. You know, we've been through a difficult year, and there are a lot of things going on in the world today, and it's easy to lose hope. But we have reasons for hope. We have an opportunity here to help these kids see what their potential really looks like. And that's why we're honored to serve in the way that we do to help them. Now, I want to thank you for being with us today. Hopefully you've been inspired. And we truly mean that. You've given your time today, and we greatly appreciate that. There are lots of places you could be, but you've chosen to be here with us. And we have a great offer for you. We have some things, excuse me, that we'd like to ask of you, but we have a great offer. We have an offer for you to make an investment in a human life, in a child that, in the absence of what we do at the clubs, might not have the hope that we're talking about. We at the Salvation Army and the Boys and Girls Clubs have some very well-founded beliefs in how we view our fellow man and why we serve and what they're entitled to. And like Reggie said also, we have opportunities in the city of Charlotte. We absolutely do. And the Salvation Army and the clubs have our eyes on those opportunities for lots of reasons, but we are thoroughly committed to seeing the success of these kids. And as we come to you today, we want you to feel that same sense of opportunity and that same sense of hope. And frankly, like we said, after 14 very difficult months, I think we're all looking for reasons to be excited about what we're doing and to have hope. And this is a fantastic opportunity. And we are pleased to be able to give you that chance and to see the difference you can make in the lives of a child here in Charlotte. So we have a few things that we'd like you to get involved with today. Number one, we'd like you to become an advocate for our youth. You know, a well-kept secret may be a nice thing in a lot of aspects of our lives, whether it's a well-kept secret that's a great place to vacation or whatever that may be. But an activity in an organization that changes lives literally isn't something that we want to be a well-kept secret. And we would welcome whatever you can do to get the word out in the community about the clubs and what we're doing. We would greatly appreciate that. Secondly, we'd like you to attend a future event. We have some coming up on October 13th. We'll be having our 30th annual Steak and Burger Dinner, which is a key fundraiser for the clubs. It's a great opportunity to interact with some of the club members. And I can tell you personally, having sat there at that dinner with some of the kids from the clubs at my table and talking with them about their backgrounds and their families and what they do and what the clubs have meant to them is incredibly encouraging and just incredibly uplifting. And it's great to see what we're doing in their lives. We're looking for corporate sponsors and table sponsors for that event, and we'll give you an opportunity to sign up for those later on today. Now, the next event that we have coming up is a lunch at the club event. But I want to go to the last opportunity first, and that is to give. And in combination, we have two things here we'd like to offer you. The ability to give, and you can become a champion by giving $5,000. You can provide weekend meals for 100 young people by giving $1,000, and it will provide those meals for an entire month. But what we can also do is, if you can afford the time, is after giving, you can visit a club. And you can walk in at one of these lunch at the club events, and you can talk to kids. You can see what's going on. You can see the light in their eyes. You can hear about their lives, and you can hear them tell you firsthand the impact that your investment of time and money is having. And frankly, there's nothing more important than that. There's literally nothing. We all think about places to invest, whether that's resources, time. But when you look in the eyes of these kids, that's an investment that I think we can all be uplifted by and get really excited about. So I'd also like to make one point too about that. I mentioned a couple of giving levels. Any gift makes a difference. We welcome any commitment that you can make of your resources. We don't take that lightly. We know that you work hard. We also believe, though, that we've been blessed. And we also happen to believe that to whom much is given, much is required. And we hope that regardless of the amount, that you can find it in your heart to give to the work that's going on at the clubs. There will be a link in the chat box, or you can go to www.bgccharlotte.org/greatfutures. Now, before we close, I'd like to again offer some thanks. First of all, to Deloitte and RSM for sponsoring this event. I'd like to thank you for your commitment to the clubs and for being here today. I'd like to thank Reggie for getting up here today, talking about his life and how others have invested in his life and what that's meant to him and what he's doing today to invest in others. And again, I want to thank you for being with us. And I'll close with something that we've already referenced twice. The major initially stated a quote, and he said, if we are to better the future, we must disturb the present. We are asking you to help us disturb the present here in Charlotte. We're asking you to disturb your personal lives by giving of your time and your resources. And I can promise you, beyond a shadow of a doubt, it'll be one of the best investments you've ever made. So again, we want to thank you for being here. We hope you have a fantastic day, and God bless all of you. Thank you.
It's your thing.